Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about something different. We're not going to do politics. We're not going to do business. Occasionally we try to bring you information about the people in our community who are helping the vulnerable people in our community. And we have a great organization here in Fairfax County called Homestretch, and I am delighted tonight that we have Christopher Fay with us. He is the Executive Director of Homestretch, Inc., and we're going to find out what that organization is doing to help people in Fairfax County. But first I want to say, Christopher, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come and talk to us.
It's my absolute delight. Glad to be with you. Thank you.
So first, who are you? Because you're the Executive Director of Homestretch.
Right.
So have you always done that?
No, actually I started as a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker many years ago in New York, and I ended up making a documentary about homeless men and women who were living underground in an abandoned Amtrak tunnel. And I was so compelled by the individuals that I met and their stories that I determined that I should do something more than just make a film. So after that I started a program for the homeless and never looked back. That was in New York, and then I came here about 7 years ago to take over Homestretch from the founder, and have been here all that time.
So tell us about Homestretch then. What does it actually do? It deals with homelessness, right?
Yes, the mission of Homestretch is to take a homeless family, put them in a home, and then surround them with the services they need to get back onto their feet. And it's a very dynamic program. It's a rigorous program. Our goal is for it to be transformative. We take a family who is homeless, they have children under the age of 18. It's a requisite that they be in crisis, be homeless, and they have young kids.
Well, there are a lot of programs that you read about that are going to try and do this. So is this a government program, first of all, or is this
Well, we have some support from the government. We get support from various segments, including the City of Falls Church, Fairfax County, the state of Virginia, and some federal funding. But over 60% of our funding is private.
Okay.
So it's not a government program per se, because we design the program around what we think works. And then find those to support us who believe in what we're doing.
So are you a 501c3 charity? Can people contribute?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And we rely a great deal on that, both on financial contributions and on volunteers. So we have, last year we had about 800 volunteers who stepped forward to do one thing or another for the organization. We provide an enormous array of services for the families, because when they come to us, they genuinely are in crisis.
So what are you defining as crisis then?
Well, they're unemployed, or I'm talking about the adult, of course. The adult is unemployed. It's usually a single mother with 2 to 3 or 4 children, and she has been homeless for several months to a year, and she has no income, very few possessions, very few friends, and very few opportunities, because if she had had those, she would have not come to us from the shelter. They go first to a shelter, and then from a shelter to us. And we take families that can't be helped at the shelter stage.
Well, now, there are a number of people in the shelters, at least from what I read. So how do you decide who gets into this program? Because you can't take everyone, I'm assuming.
No, and the shelters try and, there's a very excellent system within Fairfax County in which you try and sort of create the best possible process for someone to go through homelessness and find the right place. So someone else at some other agency will have done an initial screening, and they will have recognized that this is a family that needs Homestretch. Now, what does that mean? It means that they cannot make it on their own. They are going to need serious support in the terms of helping getting a job, but even more than that, getting the training to be able to have a better job. The average income of a mother when she comes to us is about $7.50 an hour. So it's relatively minimum wage. And she has several kids. So she cannot support her family on that. She's going to have to learn some kind of skill. So we have an emphasis on not just employment, but employment training and going to school. A lot of our families go to school and work, both, so that they can develop the resources and the skills to double or triple their income. A lot of our families come into us with debt. Nobody ends up homelessness willingly. It's a last resort to end up on the streets with your kids. And many of them have used whatever credit they've had to try and pay their bills. They've used their credit card to pay their rent, and that all runs out. So by the time they come to us, their credit is shot.
Well, how are these people who have had issues with drugs? I mean, what's the standard profile of somebody?
That's a great question, Tina. The majority of our families, 60% of the families that come to us, are homeless principally because of domestic violence.
Yeah.
So these are women who have been in a home and they have decided that it was so bad in that house they would risk being homeless in order to be safe. The consequence of leaving the abuser was homelessness. 60%. So, and there's always children involved. So it's a very courageous thing for them to do. But they also, they realized that it was just too bad in that household.
Now, is it a requirement to participate in Homestretch that you have children? Is that part of
yes,
the
we're
deal? So it's only
programming for
families.
homeless families.
Okay.
So they all have children. And it could be any number of children. We might have, we had a woman just moved in recently, had a baby, just a single mom and a baby. We also have families with up to 8 children.
Oh my gosh.
But there has to be children in the family.
Where do you find housing for somebody who has 8 kids? That's a
It's
lot
not
of children.
easy. Not easy in an area like Fairfax County,
Right.
where housing is very expensive.
Well, where do you, I mean, let's talk, I mean, I want to go back to the people in the program, but let's skip ahead a second here. Where do you find the housing for these people? Because I just would think there would be a whole lot of that, what is it, NAMBY or whatever it is, not in my backyard going on?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is all of our housing is scatter site. So it's located within the community, and none of it is congregated in one place.
Okay.
So it's secret. So there may be a family living right next door to you.
Really?
And the genius of that is it allows us to be able to help domestic violence victims, because nobody knows how to find these families. It's just a mom with some kids going off to work, going off to school, and the kids are in school. So they can be hidden. And we find the housing in any number of different ways. We're always trying, some of the housing is rented, so we'll go rent from an owner. They know who they're renting to. They usually buy into our mission. And over half of it is owned. And we've been able to buy that often through the help of HUD.
I mean, you own it yourself?
The
Homestretch
organization
owns it?
Yes.
Oh,
We own
wow.
36 units scattered around Fairfax County in lots of different areas in the county.
That's amazing. It wouldn't have occurred to me that you actually owned these places.
Right. Well, it gives us a lot of freedom, and it gives us some equity for the organization, so we have a solid financial footing.
So you take these people, and is there some test they have to pass? So they do this initial screening at the homeless shelters. Do you then just
no
interview
test.
people?
But
Is there-
the interview is, it's usually 2 to 3 hour long interview, because we want to find out everything we can about the family. So as we plan to help them, we know what it is we're facing. We know what the obstacles are and what the reasons for them. The only reason we wouldn't take a family is if they are lying to us about something very significant, because we have to start off with an honest and trusting relationship.
Okay.
But we don't turn people away based on problems they have. We assume they come in with compound problems. That's why they presented themselves to us.
Okay. So you get somebody in, they've got a bunch of kids. How do you determine where you're going to put them? Is it just what happens to be open at the time?
It is,
or-
and it's based on the size of the unit. So we won't take a family with 6 kids unless we have a house big enough for them. And that's a relationship with the shelters. So the shelters will send us someone and say, here's a family, can you take them? And we'll say, well, we do have a unit that is appropriate to the size of the family, so let's set up an interview. So the family doesn't even know they've been referred unless there's a good chance that we can take them. We try and set it up so that the families don't feel like this is, I have to get all nervous about this interview and I might not get in. The intent is to take the family if we interview them.
So if the shelter sends somebody to you, what's the likelihood? What percentage of the people actually make it through? The alarms don't go off? You don't
Over
say-
90%.
Okay, so
are
you got a
admitted.
good shot. If you get
But
the
there is an initial screening, because the people at the shelter know about us and they know what we offer and what we ask of a family. So they usually will screen out somebody they think doesn't want to do what we ask them to do. I said we're a rigorous program, and what we do is we want them to be able to address the problems in their life and try and fix them. So if a person has no skill, we would like them to be able to develop a skill. Now, it can be a skill of their choosing. We're not going to determine for them what career they choose, but they need to choose a career. If they haven't learned the language, they are going to need to learn the language. So we ask them to work with us, create a plan, with an ambitious plan, because we have so many services that we can surround them with. The likelihood of them making rapid progress is great. A lot of our families make tremendous progress in the time they're with us. Give you an example. I said one of the requisites for coming in is that you have to be in crisis and broke and homeless with kids under the age of 18. Yet, 10% of our graduating families become first-time home buyers. That means they have done an enormous amount of work in a very short period of time.
That's truly
They've
amazing.
cleaned up their credit, they've increased their income, they stabilized all the turbulence in their life, and a bank could sit down with them and realize, yeah, this is someone I want to take a risk on because they seem to they have it together.
That's remarkable, because it's hard enough for regular first-time home buyers to get loans and to do that type of thing.
I think it's because the banks recognize home stretch, and they realize that in order to have accomplished what this family did in 2 years means that they have developed a tremendous amount of discipline, and they're likely to be able to keep it up.
And is 2 years the average amount of time, or is that the maximum?
No, and actually some families can move through more quickly, and some families may need to stay longer. We have families who present even more complex problems that stay 3 years or more, and require what's called permanent supportive housing. That tends to be for families who have some kind of disability, mental disability or physical disability. Like we've had several women in the last few years who came to us because they were domestic violence victims. And as we worked with them, we realized that something wasn't right, and after testing found out that they had suffered brain damage because of the beatings of their husbands. It's terrible. Some of the stories are really incredibly traumatic what some of these women have gone through.
Oh, that's amazing. So, but you can still then work with them.
Yeah, we have a different plan, because obviously they're not going to make the same they're not going to be going out and being able to achieve the same things as somebody who doesn't have a brain injury. So we'll adjust our plan and adjust the services so they can stay longer and they can work on achieving other things that they might be able to achieve.
And when you say the supportive housing, is that the housing that you own or you rent, or do you get them into a different government program?
Both.
How does that
Sometimes they will move on to a different program that is equipped to help them, and sometimes they'll stay with us. The important thing is that they find the balance, they find the safety, and that they can stay and continue to achieve the things that are important to them.
Okay. Well, we are going to be going to break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking with Christopher Fay. We're going to talk about the kids that are in home stretch and what's being done. Stay with us.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty. But one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. And know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
We're back. My name's Bettina Lawton. I'm your host, and tonight we have Christopher Fay with us. He is the Executive Director of Homestretch here in Fairfax County. Homestretch works with homeless families. So we're going to talk some more about what he does. I do want to find out, Christopher, if there is any population that you see coming in now that's new. Is it the same types of folks today that were there 5 or 10 years ago, or is it different?
No, as a matter of fact, it's an ever-changing landscape. We always have to be nimble so that we can be responding to the actual clients that are coming to us. It's very important that we be client-centered and that we recognize who it is that's presenting themselves to us, and then we adjust our plans and our services to them. And it's so interesting, our fastest growing population right now are homeless veterans. And again, these are with children, and so far it's all been women, female veterans who've done active duty and for one reason or another become homeless, and they still have their kids with them.
Now, are they also in the category of the domestic abuse, or is this more, because homelessness is a big deal for veterans?
There has been some domestic violence in those families.
Okay.
But it can be any number of things that have happened to them. There could be post-traumatic stress disorder, could be physical disability. And in some cases, it's simply the hardship of finding life as a civilian, translating the skills of an enlisted person and finding a job, and they have kids. Because it's a tough marketplace out there. So we look at everyone who comes in differently, but we've realized that we're doing very well with the veterans, and so we decided we want to open up as many possibilities for homeless veterans as possible, and now 10% of our population, and we expect a year from now it'll probably be 20% of the people we're serving.
Well, you know, they would seem to be sort of a great risk, so to speak, because they've had to have discipline in their lives. They've had to have goals.
That's right.
And so it's kind of like if you can reorient them and sort of take away some of that immediate crisis you talked about, they've demonstrated at least once in their life that they could do it.
That's right. We found that it's been a little easier than we thought. When I first decided we were going to address it, we thought, well, let's make sure we have as many services as possible. We want to be able to address psychological problems, brain injury problems, physical disability problems, depression. But we found that we have such a comprehensive array of services that they fit right in and really like taken off. All the families that have come in as homeless veterans have been doing extremely well in the program. So it's been very encouraging.
So let me ask about, because I want to turn to the kids, but first, when you keep talking about this array of support and education and employment and that type of stuff. Talk a little bit about the average person who comes in. What do you actually do when you say you give them education support or training, or how does that work?
Well, they all get case management, but they also work with an employment counselor to find a job, and if they also want to go to school, we will help them find a scholarship so they can be in school and working at the same time. Again, it goes back to the goal that they want to be able to achieve moving forward in their life dynamically toward a career. So they're career-oriented. But there's other things that have to be addressed. Many people have legal problems, so they're going to need legal services. They may not have a car, they may not have adequate transportation, yet they have all these children to schlep around. They're going to need transportation assistance. They need child care assistance. They might need to be learning the language. They're going to need ESL classes. They might not have a GED. They're going to need a tutor. So we provide all of those things. And in addition, we provide a tremendous amount of services to the whole family, meaning to the kids. So I'll give you a few examples. Every child gets a birthday cake and a birthday gift on their birthday. At Christmas time, they're going to get an enormous array of gifts so that the parents don't have to even worry about Christmas gifts. Same thing at Thanksgiving. They get a whole Thanksgiving feast. In terms of school supplies, we make sure the child has everything they need for school. Every child gets a bicycle. Wow. We have winter clothes, summer clothes drives. They get free shoes on us. And if they need medical help, we're going to help them make sure that the kids get eyeglasses or ear exams or whatever they need. After school fees, school uniforms, we'll make sure all of that is covered. Here's the idea. We're asking the parent to work extremely hard for transformative change in their life in a relatively short period of time. 2 years, it's like they're racing to get this done. And we're saying to them, if you work that hard, we'll guarantee that your kids have everything they need while they're here so you can achieve. And that's what we do. So they don't have to worry about the kids.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you had like 800 volunteers. Is that what some of these volunteers are doing, the ESL stuff, or
Right.
helping you collect the clothes, or just, do the backpack
Everything
stuff?
from painting and fixing up apartment. We have people like who come in and decorate departments. We have teams that come and paint departments.
Mm-hmm.
Teams of people who do the landscaping for the outdoor departments. People who will go out and recently we did all our tax returns. We did over 100 tax returns for our families in the program and some of our graduates. And it was done primarily by tax accountants who gave their time. All of our legal services are done pro bono for the organization.
There's a lot of opportunity for people who really want to contribute
Yes.
their own personal skills. It's not like you've got to go out and, if you're an accountant, make a dinner. You can actually contribute accounting services.
You can contribute exactly in the area of your expertise. As a matter of fact, that's ideal for us. But some people actually like to get away from it and do something entirely different. So we might have an accountant deciding, no, I'd rather paint an apartment,
Right.
and they can do that too. They can volunteer with the kids or with the adults, or they can do it something behind the scenes, serve on a committee, help us do food drives or clothing drives, or collect vacuum cleaners. All the things that families need.
Well, let's talk some more about the kids, because you have a summer camp, right? You do run some kind of summer
We don't
program?
run a summer, no, but what we do is we work with the summer programs
Okay.
and make sure the kids get in. Like we work with a summer camp, a sleepaway camp, very closely, and make sure that whatever child wants to go to that camp can, at no expense to the family.
Sleepaway camp is pretty aggressive. I mean, even kids who come from what would be considered normal family circumstances can have a lot of difficulty with that separation anxiety thing going away.
It can be tough, but generally after the first day,
They're ready to go.
they're having so much fun that they forget that they're not with mom anymore.
So now,
So
what
it's
other kind of
good.
programs do you have for these kids then? Because I think
Well, we just opened a licensed daycare facility. We're very proud of it. It's called Kids Stretch, and it's a special program for children aged 3 to 5. And this is based on the realization that homeless children were often not ready for school. They've been schlepped around, they've gone through trauma, and they may not be at the same speed as other kindergartners. So we wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to give a structured, safe, fun learning environment for those kids. We also opened this last year an after-school program for teenagers. I mentioned that the average parent is a single mom who's going to school and working. And so she's working long hours. She gets home, she's tired. She doesn't have a lot of time to make sure her teenager is occupied doing the right things. So we opened a program for these teenagers that concentrates on academics and on life skills and on recreation, doing fun things and learning at the same time. And to make sure their grades are competitive. So, our kids generally do very well in school because we surround them with such intense services, and every child needs to be tutored, can have a tutor.
So how does this, because you were saying that you can place, when we were talking about the homes, you said you can place people in them and they're coming out of abuse situations, and so they're safe there. When you run these kinds of daycares or the after school, do you have to sort of make sure the children know they're not supposed to say where they are, or how do you protect them in that kind of environment?
The parents generally do that kind of teaching. It's up to the parent to work with their child to disclose what they want to disclose. We make a promise to the family and to the children that we will tell no one. It's all very, very secret. Even the schools, when we communicate with the schools, it's with the administrators. So they know that this is a homeless family and getting their services, but it's not something that anyone would never need to know. The little kids generally don't even know that they're in a homeless program. They just think they have all these great aunts and uncles. Teenagers know. They're smart enough. They know that they were in a shelter. They know what that was. But they don't have to tell. And there's nothing that we do will disclose it. So all of our after-school programs are just for them. It's not mixed with other kids. So there's no way that they're going to be embarrassed by some neighbor kid saying, you're homeless.
Because that's what I would think with the teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
That would be
At
just
any
devastating
level.
kind of thing.
Yeah, they could be teased. Kids will tease each other for anything.
Right. And
So it's our duty to protect them.
And is there any difficulty with Fairfax schools in placing these kids?
No, the school system, both Falls Church City Schools and Fairfax schools are fantastic. They have been really marvelous partners with us. We're very fortunate. A lot of programs for the homeless are located in bad neighborhoods because you think poor people and poor neighborhoods, poor schools. DC has a lot of that problem. we're very, very blessed to be in an area where we have excellent schools and excellent people there who understand homelessness. So one of the reasons I think we're successful in helping families is our partnership with excellent schools.
Yeah, well, that's good to know, because
Yeah.
that would be one of the things that I firmly believe, that education is one of the ways that people get themselves out of poverty
It is,
and homelessness.
absolutely.
And those kind
It
of
is
things.
absolutely. And if somebody can grasp that love of education and feel the joy of learning, then they're on a journey to great achievements.
Well, now, you've got them spread out, the families spread out to these different locations. How do you get them all, how do you get these children all to these locations for their
Well, that's why
preschool?
transportation is one of the great barriers. So we have to be able to try and help them with, most families when they come to us don't have a car, so they're taking multiple buses to school and work, and it's hard on these mothers. But over time, we're usually able to get them a car. Once they're employed, they might be able to buy a car at a highly discounted price. And so usually after around the 1 year mark, the families have acquired a vehicle that they can afford. They can afford the insurance, and it starts to get better and better. But transportation is one of the big barriers. A person might get a job, but they can't get to work.
Right, right.
They might have childcare, but they can't get the child to the childcare. So transportation is one of those things that prevents people from moving forward. We have to have that as a service we provide.
Well, now, how do you raise the money? Are you an organization that has big galas? Do you do little fundraisers?
We
What
do
you
events. We do 2 events every year, and we're always looking for money. Only about 40% of our grant money is from government sources, and that's been shrinking. In this tough economic times, government doesn't have as much money to give away.
Right.
So 60% of our funding comes from private donors, from foundations, from corporations that want to support us. So a lot of my time and a lot of some of my staff time is looking for money, writing grants, showing that we could be competitive. One of the things that works in our favor is that we're highly successful at what we do.
Okay.
We had a group of George Mason students in April of last year do a poll of our graduates that have gone back for several years to see how they're doing. 100% of those that they polled were still housed and employed.
Wow, that's
Now,
fabulous.
with that kind of ratio of success,
Yeah.
it helps make us competitive. And I mentioned 10% of our families do so well that they become homeowners.
That's
So
amazing.
you can take a program like Homestretch and turn it into a story of personal transformation.
That is wonderful. I'm so glad you came and talked with us, because
Oh, thank you.
It's
I'm
a
very
great,
glad to be here.
great story. You want to check it out, look on the web, Homestretch. It's in Fairfax County. Thank you so much for coming. We'll be
My
back.
pleasure. Thank you.